Yo, this is Terrance Gaines, aka Brother Tech,
And this is Nica Montford, aka Tech Savvy Diva.
and you're listening to and or watching the snobOS show, the show for Apple snobs, where we talk all things Apple and then some. We are back for another show. We want to thank everybody
Hello.
for watching. We want to thank all of our supporters. And what I wanted to do in the beginning is thank one of our newest Patreon supporters. His name is Sam Russell. Not only did he join our Patreon group, he actually sent us some feedback on our website in the email. So I just wanted to read his feedback. Since you are a Patreon supporter, you do get some extra love on the actual show. So I just wanted to read his message from Sam Russell. Like I mentioned, subject: love the show. Nica and Terrance, I just wanted to let you guys know how much I have been enjoying your show. I have been listening since you were guests on DTNS, which is Daily Tech News Show.
Shout out to them.
Yes, definitely. What a great way to get a dose of Apple news and others' perspective on what's going on in the world. As a white male, it is hard to hear what others that are not like me go through and how much your show has helped. Thanks again. So we definitely want to thank you for that.
Thanks, Sam. Welcome to the Snobbish family.
Definitely. And, I think his sentiment is kind of what we were going for with the show. So, for him to be able to recognize that and actually, congratulate us on that, I think that, definitely appreciate it, because that is kind of the whole point of the show, the reason why we did it. So we definitely want to thank you for recognizing why this show exists in the first place. So we definitely want to say thanks again, Sam. And like I said, having said that, we want to get right into the show. So we're going to start with the lowdown, where we talk all things Apple. So this first story is about the fact that I say last week, or if not last week, the week before.
Was last week.
Yeah, last week. Okay. So last week there was rumors. The week before that, it was rumors that the latest Apple event will be in March rather. And then come to find out, that's not the case. The show will either be pushed back, or it never was scheduled for March in the first place. But people have got more confirmation that the first Apple event of 2021 will be in April. One of the main guys who kind of leaked that information that it was going to be in March, he's a popular guy. His name is John Prosser. And he's kind of been the new it guy when it comes to leaking Apple news. So he was one of the main guys who said the Apple event is going to be in March. Come to find out, that's not the case. It's going to be in April. So I don't know, as a penance for he not getting that information right, I guess he wanted to either live up to a bet. I didn't see anything where he said an actual bet that he lost or anything, but I guess the shame that came with getting that bit of information wrong, he has decided to and has took a trimmer to his eyebrows and actually on YouTube shaved his eyebrows off. So again, I guess this is him saying, my bad, I didn't get it right. So let me show y'all that I'm really not out here just trying to throw stuff out and not have any sort of accountability. So I guess for whatever reason, his accountability was, I'm gonna shave my eyebrows off. So
who asked for that, bro?
Right. That's what I'm saying. Did he lose a bet or?
Yeah, like I don't. It would have been nice if he would have put some context around it, or maybe since I don't follow him or know his deal, maybe he did make a bet.
I don't know.
But it just seems weird.
Yeah, so I'm reading a little bit more on the story we found on Culture Mac. He says Tuesday's episode of Front Page Tech, I'm assuming that's his show. It opened with dramatic music and a recap of the leaker's solemn oath to commit a facial hair atrocity if he didn't nail the date of Apple's product launch. So that's it. So he said he was going to do something to his body, hair, face if he didn't get that date right. Of course, he got that date wrong. Maybe Apple found out and was like, yeah, we want to see you pay. So maybe they pushed it back just to see if he would.
Just to see if he shaved his eyebrows off.
Right. So reading on, he says, I quote, I am so sure that if I don't get the March event right, I will shave off my eyebrows. Then the video cut up to the present, and a wincing Prosser apparently resigned to his fate. He said, oh God, yep. He said, today is that day. The episode continued with Prosser serving up various tech news and rumors with his typical mix of insight and toilet humor. The climax came at the end on Prosser firing up his clippers around the 10-minute mark. He also turned the amateur barber session into a fundraiser for Wigs for Kids,
Oh, that's
a
nice.
nonprofit that connects young cancer patients with hair pieces. He said, I'm going to do it. He yelled, it's for the kids, for the kids. And then he did the deed and shaved his eyebrows off. So we did get our answers. He did actually make a proclamation.
Okay.
It didn't come to fruition, and a man of his word decided to shave his eyebrows off and also donated to a decent charity. So as
That's
much
cool.
right, so as much shade as we give these analysts who love predicting things, we got to give him some props for
Yeah.
sticking his neck out there. Number one, because a lot of these guys just say stuff, it don't happen. They either disappear or they just keep saying it until it becomes true. At least he, decided, look, I'm gonna put some skin in the game, and or his eyebrows in the game, and decided, what, be a man of my word. So shout out to him for actually, putting his money where, or his eyebrows where his mouth is, right?
I do have one question though. What's toilet humor? I don't know if I've ever heard that nomenclature.
College humor. I put it to college humor, farts and,
Oh,
underarms and, stinky and, not
okay.
necessarily potty mouth, but, kind of like low hanging fruit comedy,
Oh,
farts and smells and, stuff like that. I don't think it's,
okay.
I don't think it's, I don't, I, again, I don't participate in it, but I don't think it's sexist or racist or anything like that. Just lowbrow,
Pre-adolescent humor.
Exactly, exactly. Exactly. All right, all right. So the next story, we talked about this maybe a while ago, and a couple put out some information and maybe even brought some receipts. And the fact that this couple, they both applied for an Apple Card, and the husband got approved, and he had gotten a, let's just say, $15,000 credit card limit. His wife filled out an application. I don't know if she got denied. I know eventually
Was
she did get
was hers? I
approved.
think hers was it lower?
Right, right. So she got
I think
approved for Apple credit card limit. Same family, same credit. I guess you could assume same credit history, same spending, all that good
and I
stuff.
think they said she made more money than him or something. It was
Right,
something weird in there.
right. So come to find out, she got a approved for less lower credit card limit. So
Mm.
then I don't know if it became a class action lawsuit, but a couple other people, notable people, specifically Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak and Basecamp designer David Heinemeier Hansen, had both charged that their female partners were given lower credit limits on the Goldman Sachs issues Apple Card. Of course, they take it to court, and it looks like the courts decided in favor of Apple, or in this case Goldman Sachs, because Apple doesn't have any sort of financial credit anything. They're not a bank, so they partner with Goldman Sachs. So an investigation find that they did not find any evidence of unlawful intentional discrimination against women or members of protected classes, and determined that Goldman Sachs did not consider prohibited characteristics of Apple applicants and would not produce dis- disparate, I can't get that word, impacts. Still, according to the report, after reviewing both sets of credit files, Goldman Sachs raised the credit limits of both women to match the credit limits of their respective spouses within days after their complaints surfaced. So I'm kind of confused, right?
Yeah. Huh.
While the courts didn't find that they purposely were discriminating based on sex, it is kind of weird that Goldman Sachs raised their limits after the fact. It's almost like they acknowledged that something happened, but I guess they didn't necessarily purposely discriminate because of because of sex. But I guess my thing is, the reason I'm confused, it's like, well, if I didn't do nothing, I'm not changing nothing, but maybe this is their, I don't know, ways to make amends or
Yeah, because I
consolidate.
find it
Yeah.
interesting. They didn't say they just raised their credit limits. They said they raised them to match their partners.
Right.
So was it one of those things of oh God, these people are complaining. They're trying to say something's wrong. So let's just make it even and just give them what their partners got. So in the instance of the guy who first, put it, all on Twitter, he said that his partner actually, I think, made more than him.
Mm-hmm.
So technically, if that's the case, wouldn't her limit be higher? So it seems like it's just, to me, I don't have all the details, but them matching the partner's limit was just a way to say, okay, fine,
Right.
here, we'll give you what your partner has because that seemed to be the issue. Not that it was a disparity or some sort of bias based on, their partner's gender, but it was more of, okay, fine, you pitched a fit enough. We'll just match it rather than actually addressing what the issue is. And maybe that's what the courts found,
Mm-hmm.
that there was no discrimination, but the company just said, we'll just give them the same thing just so that they'll be happy. I don't know. It's very, something is, I don't know. It
Well,
sounds kind of off, right?
well, I wouldn't say off. I guess again, I'm a principled person. It's like, well, if I did something wrong, my bad. If I didn't do anything wrong, get out my face. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to make any sort of concessions if I didn't do it, if I feel like I didn't violate or I didn't do anything wrong. So the fact that they did do something when in fact they were found of not doing anything, if that makes any sense, maybe in and of itself, that's almost like an admission. Like if again, I've never,
But they did it a couple of days after it all surfaced.
right.
And this lawsuit came months after. So they wouldn't
I don't know.
know.
Maybe they shot themselves in the foot by conceding so fast to where, if I say you wronged me and you say, I'm sorry, here's what I can do for you, that's almost an admission of guilt. And maybe they said, oh, so now you admit that you did something wrong. Let me take you to court. I don't know. But,
And then the fact that the courts had both of the credit files, and when they went through the credit files of each person and they didn't see anything, yeah, I think they may have shot themselves in the foot just to, I guess, maybe they just thought if we go ahead and do something now, it'll take some of the pressure off and it will, not, the hubbub will die down,
right.
only to be found out that they didn't do anything wrong anyway.
Right. Well, like at the very end, I guess, now they'll take a closer look and it's not just paper, right? Because that's a
Mhm.
lot of the issue with credit reporting. You got three different credit bureaus. You can have two people that have same job, same finances, same credit, and then they can get two different scores. Maybe this is, maybe just a little bit of a push in the right direction to where it's not just all about paper. You actually have to evaluate people,
Mhm.
to give them a better credit score or credit limit because,
It's just not the raw numbers.
right, right. It shouldn't be the raw numbers anyway.
Yeah.
All right, all right. So the next story we're going to keep with, Apple being charged and or sued. It looks like Apple didn't slip through the cracks as it relates to shipping iPhone 12s without a charger because it looks like Brazil has fined Apple $2 million for not shipping their latest devices without a charger. So if you're not familiar, the latest iPhones, iPhone 12, iPhone 12 mini, Pro and Pro Max were all shipped with just the cables, but no power brick, the power outlet. So I guess Brazil has some specific consumer protection issues that they raised as a result of that. And Sao Paulo-based Consumer Protection Foundation, Procon, on Friday also accused Apple of misleading advertising, selling defective products, maintaining unfair contract terms, and not repairing a product still under warranty. And according to a quote from this company, Apple needs to understand that in Brazil there are solid laws and institutions for consumer protection. It needs to respect these laws and these institutions. Of course, Apple did not immediately respond for a comment. So I guess Apple's way of trying to force consumers into the idea that they're going to be more, I guess, consumer environmentally conscious. Of course, Apple's major claims to not including a charger was It's eco-friendly. Less packaging means less waste, means less recycling. You know,
And they told everybody that up front that they weren't shipping them with them.
right. But I guess, that's not the case in Brazil because, but that's, it's weird because I know in the UK, I can't remember which country specifically, but they were not selling the chargers in the box, but they were kind of like jerry rigging and attaching like another box with the charger attached. So when a
Hmm.
person bought an iPhone, they would get like this, extra box with the charger outlet in it. So I'm surprised that Apple didn't do that with Brazil. Maybe they thought they could get past it, but I guess not. But they got, slapped with a $2 million fine. So now it looks like Apple's going to have to do the same for Brazil and provide a 20-watt USB-C charger that, retail price $40. You can make the case that Apple was trying to fleece their consumers by selling an iPhone which around the same price and then have to pay more for an outlet. But I guess at the very least over in Brazil they're going to have to do something to, appease those people, who need their charger, or they're going to looks like they're going to get fined even more.
Yeah, it's interesting.
All right, all right.
So it's interesting what, how each individual country, has different stipulations and how these huge tech companies have to, make the necessary accommodations for the different, options. Because in that article you were reading, at the end of it, it mentioned that in France,
France. I
you
said
have to,
UK. Yeah, that's why I didn't say France. Go ahead.
uh, you have to sell a hands-free,
Uh
something,
huh.
for, kids, I think 14 and under, to protect them from electronic waves or
Yeah,
something. But that's
electromagnetic
just part,
waves. Right.
but that's a part of their rules, is you can't sell a mobile device without some sort of hands-free kit or, device for that specific purpose.
Right. All right. Well, we'll see how this goes. We'll see because Samsung, I remember they started shipping their devices without outlets. So we'll see if
After
Brazil.
talking trash.
Yeah. See if they have to conform as well. All right. So let's see. The next thing I've got. Speaking of Apple, it looks like they are cracking down on Apple partners as it relates to facial recognition, but they don't have the same kind of harsh, standards for facial recognition for Apple employees. So let me give you a little bit more information. Basically, in Apple manufacturing plants, they've been forcing contractors because since Apple doesn't own the manufacturing plants and they don't consider those employees as part employees, they're more contractors. And maybe due to a lot of leaks, trying to keep down on information and devices actually leaving the manufacturing plants, holding to these contractors more accountability, whatever the case may be. New rules for manufacturers working with Apple reportedly include severe limits on biometric scans of Apple staff on premises, yet encourages greater use of security cameras for actual factory workers. A new report says that Apple has updated its guidelines for factory security that must be followed by its partners in the supply chain. The new conditions include a ban on facial recognition, facial or fingerprint scanning of Apple staff, though not of the supplier's own employees. So I guess wanted to figure out or ask you, do you think this is fair for Apple to require that contractors, suppliers, third parties have to comply to these strict facial biometric standards when their own Apple employees, like maybe a manager or supervisor or whomever guest comes over to the same factory, doesn't have to adhere to those same standards? And what do you think the reasons behind that?
Well, I would assume that because the actual Apple employees don't have to go through that, that during the hiring process of Apple, maybe the background check, or, the look into the individual may be a little bit more, invasive, I guess is the word, so that it may not be as necessary for them to have that level of scrutiny. Um, because they know that the people that they've hired, the process that they've gone through is more than adequate to differentiate between any type of difference between, their hiring practice and maybe their contractors hiring practice, maybe.
I don't know. Maybe it.
That's the only thing maybe I can think of.
Yeah, maybe it's some get back because I was reading a little bit more in the story, and we'll put the link in the show notes to where it says Apple itself reportedly prefers key card and badge access to secure sections of its own facilities. In comparison, three former Apple employees told the information, which is a another story, a resource, that they were required to submit facial or fingerprint recognition scans when visiting suppliers in China. So my guess is maybe this is me, of course, being a conspiracy theorist, right? Apple employees, when they were visiting suppliers in China, not necessarily Apple, manufacturing plants, suppliers who supply the plants with parts to actually assemble the phones or assemble the Macs or whatever the case may be, they had to submit facial or fingerprint recognition scans. So maybe as some get back, they decided to
Oh,
clamp down on the contractors working in the manufacturing plants that assembled them and said, okay, well, we're going to force or enforce, tighter facial recognition, biometric fingerprint, whatever the case may be, scans, in response to being scanned ourselves, because of course, America's, even though, China supplies a lot of products, they supply a lot of manufacturing, they supply a lot of manpower to create some of these products. Our relationships ain't that kosher, right?
not besties.
Right.
It's a
So,
financial transaction. And maybe you know how the old saying goes, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So it's
right.
like, you want to make us do this? We'll make you do this too.
Right, right. I don't see any major fallout from this, but it was just interesting that Apple said, "Hey, y'all over there, y'all got to go through all this extra stuff with us. We'll just scan our cards and keep it moving, right?"
Hmm.
All right,
Interesting.
right. So the last story I have in the lowdown is we talked last week about the I'm a Mac guy was
Hmm.
doing commercials for Intel, which was kind of making fun of the Apple M1 chip. But lo and behold,
Dun dun
Intel, right,
dun.
right, Intel still wants to make sure they're on a friendly first name basis with Apple, and still is wants to be a part of that manufacturing product and wants to build the M1 silicon chips. So,
We clowned you and all,
right,
but you still want to run us a little money though?
right. So
Still
let
want to
me,
work together? Still want to be
right.
friends?
So let me read this in iMore in a press release on Intel's website. The company's new CEO, Pat Gelsinger, has announced that the company is founding a new Intel Foundry Service division of the company to try and make itself known for its processor manufacturing. As a part of that new venture, Gelsinger says that the company wants to go after Apple as a potential customer. As reported by Mac Rumors, this was surprising to a lot of people, especially since the company has been running ads that bash Apple's new M1 Macs. So I just found it interesting that they, well, I guess they see them as competition, in the sense that they had to start some sort of marketing campaign, but
Hmm.
still want to get that back end money. But it's not really surprising because Apple and Samsung go back and forth all the time. And Samsung makes most of the LED display products on iPhones, on a bunch of different products. So,
But
but
so why would I want to give my direct competition the schematics and the
well,
ability
that's very
to
true. That's
produce
very true.
my chip?
That's
I'm
very
not
true.
giving you that proprietary information. Are you stupid?
That's very
No.
that's very true.
It's wild. world that they would even think that Apple would say, all jokes aside, because, it was funny. But
Right.
let's put the jokes aside and think about dollars and cents and business. If you were my direct competition, why would I hand you over the kings to the kingdom
Right.
to make it for me when you're making something that's not even the same as that's honestly a lower tier than mine.
Well, so
Well,
I'm not a chip manufacturer. I'm not all into the whole. I'm not a nerd or geek like that when it comes to processors and how they're built and Intel versus ARM versus all these other things. Maybe that it may not be that close of a Intel and M1 may not be the technology or the how
the
they're built.
architecture.
Yeah, the arc. That's what the word I was looking for. The architecture may not be that close. Again, I'm not familiar with the M1 chip, but there may be some ARM technology in there that is not the same as Intel. So maybe Intel and Apple teaming up to make an M1 chip, it won't be like you said, given over the blueprint because it is a different architecture, different technology. I don't know. All
But I
my
think
Go ahead.
No, I would say, but I think they could still probably pull some of it from pull something from it, even if the architecture is set up differently and the way that it's built out is different. If you think about the boards that these chips are on, they are so small.
Right.
And for this M1 chip to be able to fit into an air, which is super, super thin, even if they can't reuse any of the actual architecture and technology, you could see how they place the different components on the chip to be able to make it so small that Intel could say, well, maybe we could, oh, they got this way, let's rearrange the way our chip is set up so that we can maybe make it smaller, maybe make it faster, maybe make it more efficient. I If they do this, I would be very surprised. I mean, I've been surprised before, but I find it very interesting, to for lack of a better word, to have another chip maker asked to manufacture the
Maybe
direct competitor's chip, who is, I mean, by all accounts, significantly better than what they currently have.
I don't know. You bring up good questions. I don't know. Like I said, maybe Apple, maybe Intel is trying to push the idea that we've been doing this, and even though y'all new kids on the block, the getting ramped up, mass producing, you better off letting us do it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting.
All right, so that is it for the lowdown. Let's move into second string. So, I don't know if you are heavy on Slack or not, but I know a lot of people do use Slack as their main tool of inter-office communication. But now it looks like Slack is giving you the tools and the ability to direct message anybody, whether it be inter-office or outside of the office. So Slack is starting to roll out a new feature, lets anyone using the service DM each other. Announced back in October, Slack Connect DMs will let Slack users privately message employees outside of their company. It's designed for companies working with partners or clients, but you could even use it to message friends at other companies. So go ahead.
Hmm. No, I was just saying, I think we talked about this when they first announced it last year. But if I'm remembering correctly, I thought the whole point was so say if you work for company A, but I'm company B and I'm your supplier, even though we don't work for the same company, we have same interests. So it would open it up so that you and I can communicate back and forth, but only you and I. It wouldn't just let anybody who's on Slack be able to jump into the DMs. I thought the whole point of this connected DMs was to not allow just anybody to be able to jump into your DMs. But reading this, it sounds like now, did they shift focus to say, okay, well, now anybody can DM anybody?
That's what it sounds like. It sounds like they maybe that's not the design, but maybe the side effect of doing this will give you the ability to pretty much DM, friends at other companies. Again,
But
there's
they
not
said that was the whole point. They weren't going to allow that.
right, but it looks
That's
like I
right.
don't know. I
They
guess
opened
they
it up. I guess they changed the game. Okay.
yeah, I guess so. So again, I just put that out there because I know a lot of people out there, whether it be working at startups, whether it be working at some of these tech savvy companies, they use Slack, they use Teams, they use some of these messaging platforms as or in place of like email because everybody hates email.
Mhm. So I used Slack a lot back when I was in grad school. That was like a big thing where everybody congregated on Slack, whether it be for a specific class, whether it be if you had like team projects or something. But other than that, I mean, honestly, I wasn't even aware of Slack before that, before starting grad school. And then even once I was in it, people talk about email, but this Slack is like next level. You have to toggle between the different channels. And then if you're not in there, you have to scroll back and catch up on the
Yeah, that
conversation.
is true.
It was a lot. To me, it was counterproductive
Right.
to
I
me.
guess the opposite of that is you really feel like a team, even if you're not directly, in the same office, because
Mm,
the information goes so fast. Instead of taking the time to set up a meeting and schedule it in, the calendar and trying to
mhm,
find out everybody's free and open and busy, you can just
mhm.
ping somebody right fast and not have to, again, like you said, while email is kind of separate, a lot of people get so many emails that they tend to ignore them, right?
Yeah,
Versus Slack message, you kind of prioritize that notification versus an email notification may go way down on your
maybe.
priority list when it comes to responding, but you get a Slack message or Teams or whatever, you kind of pay attention to that closer. So I guess it's just a way for people to stay
A different
communicated.
way.
Right.
And if people are already using Slack as their primary communication tool, then I guess this makes sense. I know we are shifting at my job from Skype to Teams. And for me, it has not been an easy transition because, with Skype, you have the little icon in your sys tray at the bottom. So if someone pings you, it kind of highlights, you can see it. Not so much in my experience with Teams, unless I'm using it wrong. And then my thing is, I like to be able to close out chats when I'm done talking with you. In Teams, it keeps them, and the only thing you can't delete them. The only thing you can do is hide them.
Right.
And so I just keep hiding them. I don't know where I'm hiding them to though. And if I need to go back to them, I don't know how to unhide them. I don't know.
Right.
It I guess it's just, the learning curve and using, getting used to a new tool. But I mean,
Right.
I guess. Mm.
All right. Well, paid Slack users will be able to access Slack Connect DMs today. At the time of this recording, it's Wednesday the 24th, and the company says it plans to roll out this to all teams, including free users, soon. Slack is also working on a new way to link together multiple organizations to create private business network. This feature will launch later this year and will include unified directories, channel discovery, and shared apps. So if you are a heavy Slack user, I guess this is good
Good
news.
news for you.
Good
Yay.
news for you. All right, the next story I found was looks like Samsung is looking to step its drone game up and now is starting to use drone deliveries for Galaxy products in Ireland. So specifically to Samsung Galaxy, so no TVs, no computers, no,
Phones only, folks.
yeah,
Small
phone,
packages.
right, phones and maybe tablets only. So some Samsung customers in Ireland will receive their orders through a courier that can take to the skies and reach them within a few minutes. The tech giant has teamed up with Mama Drone Delivery to make drone delivery an option for Irish customers, so long as they're purchasing the latest Galaxy devices. Eligible models include the S21 Ultra, Galaxy Buds Pro, Galaxy Tab 7, which is their tablet, Galaxy Watch 3, and the Galaxy A series. I guess that's another firm of their Galaxy Watch. In addition, orders must be placed via Samsung's Irish website, and the option only available for customers based in a town called Oranmore at the moment. So just I just want to put that out there because it seems like we talked about it in the pre-show, being able to order anything and have it delivered to your doorstep in a matter of days, if not hours, is a side effect of this pandemic. And it looks like things like drone delivery, which is going to make it easier for us to order things, it looks like that is on its way with this, this story that we found about Samsung delivering products via drone. So I guess get your take. Are you looking forward to being able to get things faster? If that means a drone is going to fly down on your patio or on your front porch to drop it off? Looks like I missed you. Are you muted?
Oh yeah, I muted
Oh.
myself. There was someone barking, a dog barking. But no, I was just saying, I'm honestly not surprised at this latest innovation. Um, because, we have Amazon, and then we got Amazon Prime, and
Mm-hmm.
now, you have, like, I've used Drizzly, which is the alcohol delivery service. You order, you get it in 2 hours.
Okay.
So it's one of those things where the market is delivering things faster and faster. And it only makes sense that the next level is drones, where you don't necessarily have to have bodies delivering things, but you
Mm-hmm.
can have a drone to go out and do it. We Drones have been a while around for a while now, and we use them for a bunch of different things. And in reading this and just thinking through it, we always talked about flying cars, and when we get flying cars,
Mm-hmm.
this may be our flying car. This may be what we see buzzing around in the sky, and not necessarily us in a vehicle, even though
Right.
I think that'll eventually come.
Mm-hmm.
This may be the first iteration of our flying car, so to speak.
Right. So I was just watching Back to the Future this weekend, watched the one, two, and three. And of course, the one thing that immediately popped in my head is the dates, right? Because Back in the Future dropped in 88, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, in the movie, they say in the year 20, I think they said 2015,
Mm-hmm.
when he goes to the future the first time. And of course, in DeLorean, the car's flying, and me and my wife's first response was, "Nope, that's too." They predicted too soon in the
Too
future. It
soon.
needs to be 2115 before we see flying cars. But I think back then in '88, I think we were all just knew flying cars was going to be a thing, right? So the
Because we
fact
think of the 2000s, it's like,
so
wow.
far away, right?
Yeah.
but
Nope, not so far.
but like you said, the fact that drones are starting to enter into our lexicon as the thing driving the future, especially when we're talking about automation. Drones are either manually driven. We're talking about smart cars that are now starting to become automated. Once those things kind of tie together, I've heard
Hmm.
stories about Uber doing research on small unmanned aerial vehicle
Hmm.
for Uber rides, right? So if this takes off and becomes popular, of course companies looking to be innovative, be at the front of the line, will definitely jump on this and actually take it to where we will get flying cars again. My prediction for flying cars, it won't be in the 2000s. It may be, my guess is 21, the early 21s, whatever that's
Hmm.
called, when we'll actually get us being able to, out of my garage,
Hmm.
pull out my flying vehicle and go to wherever I want to go. But it looks like it's coming because the
Yeah.
technology is coming. Batteries are getting smaller. They're trying to figure that out. Once they figure that out, I think everything will take off once they figure out how to miniaturize a power source.
Yeah. And if you think about it, you know, one thing I don't necessarily remember in, movies back then, were, self-driving cars. I mean, I think there may have been some, but it wasn't as prevalent as the flying cars. And we're now in this whole self-car driving mode. That's pretty much what everyone is doing. And I've recently taken a role in AI and ML, working on, EVs and autonomous vehicles. So I think for the 2000s, where we are now, I think that's the focus of is of
Automation.
getting
Yeah.
automation, getting everything smaller, quicker, faster, leaner, so that when we get to the 21s, you know, it'll just be, applying, some sort of
Aerial.
aerial technology
Right.
to those because they're already, you have Teslas now who already has what looks like the space dashboard on the inside. They already have the batteries, even though they're heavier. It's just making sure that we trim down and slim down everything
Right.
to make it easier. And then, plop on the, for lack of a better term, you know how you can take the battery off with the wheels, pop on, the landing gear,
And
and
then there you
you're
go.
on.
All right. And I said
Yeah.
automation. I meant to say autonomous. I always get those two mixed up.
Yep.
All right. All right. So the next story is Facebook is building an Instagram for kids. And I say yuck because my kids are of that age to
They're ready.
where they would be the target of all this marketing. But it looks like somebody has leaked a internal post that Facebook, the company, has made it a priority to make a Instagram for kids under the age of 13. And I'm just going to read this story here, or this memo. I'm excited to announce that going forward, we have identified youth work as a priority for Instagram and have added it to our H1 priority list. We will be building a new youth pillar within the community product group to focus on two things. One, accelerating our integrity and privacy work to ensure the safest possible experience for teens. And B, or number two, building a version of Instagram that allows people under the age of 13 to safely use Instagram for the first time. Yada yada yada. Bunch of people, bunch of stuff. I clocked out at under the age of 13. So I guess, of course, I'm the family man with the kids, but I guess I just wanted to get your opinion first. Do you think this is a good idea? One, and two, is there a need? One, is there a need for, or is it demand for kids under 13 to be engaged in social media? And if so, is it the right move?
I have a 9-year-old nephew. He's on YouTube literally all the time.
Okay. Okay.
My nieces are what, 5 and 1. They don't go anywhere without their tablets.
Okay.
So I personally think that it's a good idea to have a space just for kids. I know I was on Twitter, what was it, yesterday? And someone I follow said that their 15-year-old niece, they wouldn't let her get on Instagram, and when they let her get on, she wants to be like an influencer, so that she made sure she did all the research and all that type of stuff. And so they took the proactive steps to make sure that when she got on, she knew what to do,
Right.
she knew how to handle it. But the aunt also said that as soon as she created her profile, there were adults immediately on her page with notifications set up. So, if for nothing else than to create a safe space for kids to be kids, then I don't really see a problem with it. I would think that their number one focus, because they know how to make the product, because the product is already out there and it's already working. What I think they should spend their time on is making sure that they have the safety protocols in place to make sure that these disgusting, perverted people don't find a way to weasel their way in. Like, how do you validate someone's age other than by them just typing in their age?
Right.
No one's stupid. You can do the basic subtraction to to get the number to be able to create the account. I mean, kids do it now to age themselves up to get into access certain spaces. So my thing would be for them, what are you doing to make sure that your identification process is valid, to make sure that it is 13 and under actually going on these pages. And honestly, they say 13 and under. It to me, it should really only be maybe kindergarten is even, I think that's even too young. I would say maybe first grade. How do you mean first grade? Like seven, 6 or 7 to like 13. Because if you're 5 and under, in the likelihood if you have any type of social presence, your parents are already running it. But by the time they get ready to use it themselves, um, you know, they'll be old enough to do so.
Right.
But I think if they're really doing this, 95% of their time needs to be focused on having a valid authentication process to getting access to this site.
Right.
Because what it does do is we already know, you know, kids getting on the current Instagram, how these disgusting people get access to kids. But now you're talking about an environment that's strictly children.
Right.
If they can get into that and get access into that, then it's even worse.
Right. And they will. So a couple things, right? So I don't have a problem.
Uh-oh. Did I lose you?
No, you're still there.
Okay, there you go.
So I don't have a problem
Okay.
with kids getting on social media or getting on platforms that have a social aspect, right? Because my
Hmm.
kids, they
What,
use
Roblox, is that the
right.
thing
They use
that all the kids
Roblox,
go crazy
and
over?
that has a social aspect because they have to interact with other users to do their different things. They have Nintendo Switches, so they use Animal Crossing, which has a social aspect to it. But even in those two instances, those are gamified.
Hmm.
So I where my issue is, number one, the under 13. I'm like, why can't the kids just wait until 13 to get that heavy social aspect? Well, not heavy, primarily social aspect of it, because with Roblox and Animal Crossing, the primary is a game. The secondary
Hmm.
aspect of it is social, because in order to complete the game or do whatever the challenge is, you have to interact, right? With social media, the primary is being social, interacting with people, getting likes and getting comments and getting whatever being an influence, whatever the case may be. So I have a problem with that in the sense that, okay, the social aspect, I think there should be an age limit on it. And 13 has just been our, Western or just society's number. So, let's just, why the push to get under that, right? That's number one. Number two, like you said, my 4-year-old, he's all on YouTube Kids. But again, there's no social aspect to that. They're just watching
Hmm.
videos. Even with my daughters, as they got older, I turned off all the social comments and social
Hmm.
aspect of it. You can't comment, you can't like nobody, you can't invite nothing, you can't message
All you can do is
nobody.
watch.
All you can do is watch, right? And then when they became of age, we slowly but surely dialed some of that stuff back. We gave them access to more things, so on and so forth. But that's me as a parent, right? I don't get, before I get to that point, number two, to answer to piggyback on what you said, what is Facebook in this case? What are they doing to protect their regular people on social
Hmm.
media? Forget the kids. We've got grown people, and not necessarily just the pedophiles and the sicko people that want to get access to
But
kids
people
specifically.
bullying people,
Bullying, people
stalking.
right, people, getting depression and anxiety when it comes to being wrapped up in all of these social media platforms and social media tools and this, what are y'all doing to protect them? Let's
Mhm.
get them straightened out. Let's get a better handle on that. And then, maybe transition or broaden into younger audiences, to maybe get them ready to be able to handle when they finally get of age and get exposed to all this social media. It's like, y'all can't even handle the current demographic you got now. What makes me believe that you're going to take all this extra effort and all this extra work to protect my kids when you can't even protect the grown
Developing
folks?
minds. I
Right.
mean, it's hard enough with grown people who've been around and who've experienced things. Now you're taking into it the mental age of these kids, and how they interact, and how they don't have coping skills to handle some of this stuff. You already have these babies, killing themselves over being bullied at school.
Right.
My God, what's going to happen on a social app when we've already seen what happens with adults? But I
And
think but I think it comes down to money,
right.
because I think I saw something where it said they asked kids, what they want to be when they grew up, and the large majority of those kids, I think it was like 40% or something like that, so they want to be YouTubers, influencers.
Yep.
So I don't know if they're trying to get a jump on this
Maybe,
new revenue
possibly,
stream.
but
Because I mean, you have, what's the Ryan's World little kid who made like 40 something million
I
dollars on
think 20 or
YouTube?
30 million or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's plenty of kids making tons of money, driving so much traffic and so much advertiser bucks to these social platforms. So the cynic in me is like, to me, it all boils down to money,
Right.
hardcore cash.
Right.
How can I monetize this? Yeah, they're little kids, but still they make money. They
Right.
generate money. So
And
how can we leverage that?
right. And my to the story that I'm reading kind of emphasizes my point. We reported a while back that Facebook made a messenger for kids, to where kids who aren't old enough to get on Facebook proper could get a messenger for kids account, to where if they had a phone or a tablet, they can message friends and message
Why they need to be
friends.
messaging people on Facebook?
Well, so the problem is, and I'm just reading strictly from the story. In
Okay.
2019, The Verge reported that a bug in Messenger Kids allowed children to join groups with strangers, despite Facebook's claims that the product had strict privacy controls. So that just furthers the point that Facebook, they
And we
can't.
know Facebook will lie.
Right. They can't get their own controls to better protect their current user base with their controls. How is this Instagram for kids going to prove to me, a parent with of age kids, that you're going to have their best protection, privacy at heart, when you can't do that for me as a regular person on
Hmm.
Facebook regular? So again, like you said, it boils down to cash. They're trying to get a jump on these kids who are becoming socially savvy earlier, and they're like, okay, well, how can we get them in the ecosystem
Hmm.
early before they get on to Google, before they get on to Apple? How we get them before they get into Microsoft, how we get them in our ecosystem.
Let we want to be their first stop. Then they can go to
Exactly.
the other one, but we want to be
Exactly.
the first stop on the train. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. So.
Because these kids know how to use it. I mean, little babies, these little kids, they pick it up so fast, and they know what YouTube is. If they can't say anything else, they can say YouTube, and they can go and find trolls and sing and whatever else the
Right.
kids are into. They know how to get to it.
Which is fine, but at the same time, it's just like we have a cutoff, right? How young is going to be too young eventually, right? I think 13 is a decent age for parents and guardians, and people who are looking over these kids can prepare and arm themselves to be able to have a conversation with their kids as the do's and don'ts, stay safe when it becomes a social media. If parents, have to have these
If
conversations
the
with their
parents aren't
kids.
safe on these sites, then how are
Right,
they going
right.
to
How
tell
can I have
kids
a
to be safe on
how
these
can I have a
sites?
conversation with my 4-year-old? Like, all right, now when you log into Instagram, make sure kids looking at me. Can I have some juice? It's like,
Can I have some goldfish crackers,
right,
man?
right.
What are you talking about?
So I just think there's a time and place for
It's
everything, and I think under the age of 13, I think is a stretch. Even though, like you mentioned, kids are getting exposed to social media earlier and earlier and earlier. Some of them are probably getting exposed earlier than 13 because their parents are letting them get on earlier. So I, you know,
I mean, it's like, we used to, they used to call the TV is the babysitter. Now the tablet, the phone, that's the babysitter. You got to do something. Give kid the tablet, give kid the phone, or the first thing kid asks, can I see your phone? Where's your phone?
and they get on the real
Can I play on
Facebook
your
or the
phone?
real Instagram, right?
Right, right.
All right. So the last story in our second string is Bevy, a platform that's used to create, community-driven events, online, communities, has raised $40 million in a Series C stage, with 20% of it coming from Black investors. So
Nice.
this round was led by Excel, with participation from Upfront Ventures, Qualtrics co-founder Ryan Smith, and LinkedIn. But what makes this investment remarkable is that it included 25 Black investors, representing 20% of the investment. So I just wanted to do a highlight to some of the people. Again, like I said, Bevy is an enterprise software for virtual conferences and community events. So, of course, in this pandemic, you have a lot of in-person events have gone virtual. So it looks like Bevy is in a good position, because as these events are starting to migrate to more of an online or have an online presence, of course, that's where all the money comes in, because everybody's looking for the new disruptor, right? But it's dope that, Black investors are getting included in this new,
Early.
early in this new, new this new endeavor, online,
Yeah.
interactive, community events where everything is online driven. So I just want to shout out some of the investors that, I'm familiar with. Jewel Burke Solomon, we've mentioned her name time and time again as one of the, tech gurus in Atlanta. Paul Judge is another one in Atlanta who has, like a startup village here, where he's either launched his own companies or has supported other Black entrepreneurs here in the Atlanta area. Angela Benton, who is a pioneer when it comes to Black startups. She last year she started Streamlytics,
We talked about her a couple
we
times.
talked
Yep.
about her multiple times. Baron Davis, who is a former NBA baller who's kind of converted to an investor, and just a couple other people. So I just wanted to shout those people out, to being able to get in on the ground floor of a a company, or just being able to contribute at an early stage, where we, like you said, most likely, we are, grasping for straws to get this kind of investment, or we are not privy to being access to get into some of these investment opportunities
We're not given the prospectus at the beginning.
before it IPOs on the
Yeah.
stock market, and everybody who invested early gets paid millions and millions and millions of dollars. And then, the rest of us are trying to buy some stock in order to get a couple of dollars here and there.
Get a little something.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's nice that, Black investors are starting to get that early access, and being recognized for the ability to have the capital to invest once we get the access.
Yep.
So I
Dope.
just wanted to highlight them. And I think if you didn't have anything else on that, that'll be it for second string. Now we're going to move into For the Culture, where we talk about anything as it relates to social media, culture, so on and so forth. So maybe our listeners are not aware, but it's kind of hard not to be over these past couple days, because this Derek Jackson dilemma, as I call it, has taken over my feed over the past couple days.
Yep.
And I have, as much as I do not like to research drama and get in on all the tea as it relates to social media, celebrities, social media, whatever you want to call them, it was kind of hard not to go down this particular rabbit hole. So let me give you the quick background.
The Reader's Digest version.
Right. So there is this social media relationship expert, and I emphasize the social media because from my knowledge, this guy doesn't have any sort of certifications. To
Nope.
my knowledge, has not went to any sort of university and got any sort of
Nope.
degree on relationship coaching,
Maybe you
but
should say self-proclaimed
self-proclaimed social media relationship expert
relationship expert.
by the name of Derek Jackson. He spells his last name Jaxn, which I think irks a lot of people.
I was pronouncing it when I saw it J Xon.
Jaxn, no, so maybe his real name is Derek Jackson, spelled regular,
I
but
think
he
it is Jackson,
but
based on what I've seen.
for the
Yeah.
handle, he shortened it to Jaxn because maybe the full name was not available. Either way, for the past, I have been familiar with him for a while. I think he's been doing this hustle to where he goes on Instagram, goes on Facebook, on YouTube, and he provides relationship advice primarily, exclusively targeted at women, to where, he has made a name for himself, wrote a couple books, and is one of those relationship experts that, famously or infamously, like I mentioned, targets women a lot of times at the expense of men, right? So a lot of his posts have been, you know,
Treat your woman right.
treat your woman, you ain't, women
You
deserve
wear the
better.
queen.
These men are trash out here. Ladies, recognize a trash
Be the
man
prize.
when you see him. Don't be out here accepting any old thing from any old man. Y'all deserve
You
better.
the prize.
Right? You the prize, right? The Steve Harveys, all these guys that have kind of made a name for themselves targeting women with this relationship advice. He's been one of the people that you mentioned in the group, right? So, as of this weekend, some news came out that, number one, he's married, that I did not know,
Nope.
because all you saw in all his videos was him in his car talking to women as to how they need to be treated, right?
That probably was the first sign.
Right.
Filming in your car.
Red flag, right? Red flag. You want to do it in your house because your wife that we didn't know about didn't know you was out here doing this, right? Came out that he had been involved in a relationship outside of his marriage. So the information came out on the weekend. The first time I heard about this was he put out a video to where he's responding to these allegations. The allegations stem from some woman, I can't think of her name. I didn't do that much research, but she had some pictures of him in his house, pictures of him in areas to where she ain't supposed to be if that ain't his wife, right? Had some other allegations about, flying her out to what you can think of this type of allegations that come out when a man, an influential person, has been found having a relationship outside of his marriage, right? So he puts out this video to where he's responding to these allegations, talks all around the world in a circle
In
about
third person.
in third person about him not doing, all these allegations are false. He made something that stuck in my mind that wow. He said,
The whole thing was well.
well, this first video where he responds to these allegations, he says, I had a sexual relationship with a woman without having sex with her. So
What
that
does
in
that
of
even
itself,
mean?
I was like, oh, word, that's a thing, right?
You could do that?
Right. So so in this first video, he explains that the allegations that were not true, and he goes on to explain that the reason why he had these relationships was because him and his wife were having marital issues. According to him, his wife,
According to him.
right, allegedly, according to him, his wife left or separated. Then that's when he had these relationships outside of his marriage when they were on a
Without that.
break. The typical "we were on a break," excuse. She decided, or he turned his life over to Christ. Another
Found the
one.
Lord. Then I brought the Lord in it.
That's the playbook number 2, right?
Yep.
First we was on a break. Number 2, I found the Lord, right? His wife, they decided to, work it out, have been on the straight and narrow, have worked through their issues. So they're good now. And, now he's just trying to respond and let people know that this stuff happened in the past. Right after that video, he put another video. And this is the video I
Because the
think
lady Tasha with the K, I think is her name. She aired it out,
some more, which
so
is
he had to
why,
come back. He had to come back.
right, she aired out some more information, and what I think happened was, I think the story that he told his wife was
Was
different
different.
than the story that this young lady told. So I think what he had to do was to bring his wife onto this next video number 2, where he's holding her hand tight and they want to do the
Like
typical.
a freaking hostage in a bonnet.
Right, but the typical press release, to the press conference, you've seen so many of these powerful men get on this podium with his wife standing on the side and him having to admit that, yes, I had an affair outside of my relationship, which again contradicts what he said before, to where I did some stuff, but not really, right? This time in the second video, he had to come and say, I actually did some things, again, because in my opinion, I think he told his wife that, I did some things, but told us I ain't do nothing. So I think he had to consolidate the
He had to
story.
reconcile all the
Exactly.
differences.
He had to reconcile the differences with his wife and with us. Again, she was according to, again, I'm not the one to judge. I'm not a guy. I'm not going to judge her appearance, but a lot of
I'm a
people were,
woman. I would.
so a lot of people were saying, he brought his wife on, looked like he brought her against her will. She wasn't prepared. And it was just a bad look for her that she had to sit there while
And
he
suffer
explained to
through.
us. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, to say and suffer through the humiliation
Right.
again
Right.
because of something he did.
Right.
She didn't do nothing.
Right.
And
Exactly.
now she's drugging this. He has like a triple clasp, and then he kept looking at her, and all she do is she looked like one to me. She was sedated,
Oh, wow. Okay.
and she looked like she was being held hostage.
Okay.
And at first, we don't let the jokes fly. If nothing else on Black Twitter happens, the jokes are gonna fly, even in serious situations. And after looking at it some more, I I'll let you finish, and then I'll come back.
Right. So they have this press conference again. At the very least, she looks hella uncomfortable. You could say she wasn't, dressed for the role, because you would think that we've never seen this lady at all for the past 5-7 years, 8 years plus he's been doing this.
Didn't know she was
Didn't know he was married. 2, didn't know she existed. Didn't know what she looked like. Now all of a sudden you bring her to the forefront in this
And you're a
mess,
mess.
right? And then at the very least, you would think they would have strategized it a little bit better to where she had a better appearance. Our first time seeing her, right? They have that thing. And then, of course, I think the comments came that, why you bring her on here, her involvement. So, of course, the allegations were you made her come on here, you held her hostage, she was uncomfortable against her will, yada, yada, yada. So then he comes out with another video.
No, she did a video first.
Yeah, okay, she did a video. Go ahead,
She
explain
did a
that
video
part.
by herself,
Okay.
basically absolving him really
Right,
for his things.
right.
Okay, then go back to your video.
Yeah, so she's again, I'm a woman. Again, that's the third thing, which is not fair to women. If I think she feels like or felt like she is, I'm a woman of God, and I feel like I have to keep this family together. And what made me stay was his, again, turning his life over to Christ. And according to her, that was the turning point to show that he has changed his ways. So I think that was like her explanation of absolving him of all the things he did, right? So then they do another video. The third the one I saw was, so his style of doing videos is on Nica's side. Imagine we're an Instagram video, right? On Nica's side, is the question or the person making a comment about the relationship, and then on my side is him sitting there listening to the video or reading the words, and then he does his response, right? So in this next video, which is crazy,
It's wild.
he is in my spot watching himself and his
His wife.
wife do this press release with the clutched hand and listening to their statement, and then him in third person responding to himself
To his
and
own video.
his advice to what
To
this other
himself.
guy who's himself and his wife, his advice for himself. So he's yeah, it sounds like,
Derek
what.
Jackson.
Right, right, right. Derek Jackson. My advice to Derek Jackson, which is also myself, should, I think his wife, recognizes that he made some mistakes. First and foremost, I applaud him for taking accountability for his own
Because,
actions.
yeah, because, a lot of men would be like, I came from a broken home. I never saw what a marriage looked like. But
Took
Derek
full,
Jackson,
right.
took responsibility for his actions.
And because of that, I think for the advice for his wife, I think she should give him a chance because I'm like, man, what?
Like, what the hell, man?
This is insane. So all that, and that pretty much it. Of course, again, I went down a rabbit hole. Of course, my thing
Oh,
was
yeah.
I knew of him, but I didn't follow him for, because one, I'm married, so I don't take relationship advice. Again, for
No.
somebody I thought was single, maybe I would have paid attention if I knew he was married. But I just found that out, right? So, and, I really don't. I mean, I know some people who are in the relationship advice space, but again, the internet people who have made themselves into gurus and experts, not just in
Right.
relationship space, in general.
In
I
general, yeah.
tend to only stick with the people who I know certified, went to school. This is my thing, right? I didn't get that impression from him, so I kind of wasn't paying all that much attention, right? So my thing was I went down the rabbit hole and looked for all the videos to where I was like, was he talking to himself when he was giving all this advice about these trash men?
His wife should have watched his videos to learn what she should have been looking for.
This dude has specific videos on why a man's apology is not enough. He has specific videos on if your man cheats, it probably ain't his first time cheating.
So, but interrupt there. So apparently they've been together 14 years
Okay.
and he's been unfaithful all that time except for about 6 months.
Okay. And I heard the reason why, again, all allegedly, the reason why he got married in the first place because she was pregnant. According to him, well, I was going to ask her to marry me. It just seemed like a good time. Of course, again,
Sure.
step number 4,
And this is all wrapped up in the guise of Christianity and religiosity. And if you know the Black community,
black women specifically.
Black women specifically are the mules and the reasons why, men go astray.
Right.
So
Yeah.
they're expected to carry that burden.
Expected
But
to hold the
also-
family together, expected to forgive and keep the family together. So all that to say, learning more about this guy, my impressions of him is like his entire brand, his entire online persona is built on relationship advice targeted specifically to women. So
Black Christian women.
To Black Christian women. So then him getting into this this issue that he frequently speaks out against. I find it hard, if not impossible, no matter all these stunts he's pulled, because again, all the videos, all the live, all the response, the reaction video of himself, I think is all a stunt, not to fix his marriage, but
to
to
make
fix
money.
his brand and to resolve his brand, because the worst thing he could do as a person based on this brand he's built is do this to his wife. So the fact
Who was a Black woman and who's his target audience?
Who's his
is Black
target
women.
audience, right?
And let's not forget that his response video to his own video, at the end of it, he was selling his book
right,
50% off for y'all.
right. So it just
Like something or other.
it just reeks of a publicity stunt that was solely concocted to fix or save what little left brand he has, because I find it hard, if not impossible, for him to recover from this, because any video after this. All right, go ahead, go ahead.
Apparently, he's gained like 500,000 followers since all this broke out.
And I think that's because people being nosy, people who had not heard
But
of him
people,
before. Go ahead.
yeah, go ahead. No.
I was gonna say people who had not heard of him before, nosy folks, people who love drama. Again, I have the present company included, because as much as I tried to avoid this, down the rabbit hole I went. So Joe viewed him on YouTube, followed him on social, just to see what people were saying. So of course I added to that drama, right? So to answer your question, or to respond, I think a lot of people, did not know, and it just took hold of our social media timeline so much that you wanted to
Just
be in the
trashed it.
know, right? So, you had to find out more information. So I think a lot of new followers, new shares, new views, I think are a response to people trying to figure out who this guy is and what's going on, right?
And at the same time, there are a lot of people who think like him.
Right, right.
It's a lot, unfortunately, it's a lot of people who think like this guy.
And as much to my chagrin, much to a lot of people, a lot of black men's chagrin in general, again, it didn't apply to me, because I know I'm happily married. I happily love my wife, and I don't cheat, right? So a lot
Mhm.
of his angst, or a lot of his targeted destructive criticism towards men, I knew didn't apply to me. But a lot of brothers felt like, okay, well, this dude, he's trying to take advantage of these women by painting men in a bad light to make himself look good,
Mhm.
right? So I find it hard, like I said, for him to, to recover from this. But I guess the question I wanted to ask you, oh, that's the point I was going to get to, and then I lost it that fast. Anyway, the question I wanted to ask to you, as far as him specifically, do you think he falls under the, people make mistakes, nobody's perfect, as long as he and his wife have reconciled, and as long as they are happy, is this one of those everybody makes mistakes type of scenarios, and people should be given grace? Because if I, hypothetically, if I was in this situation, I want people to give me grace? Or do you view this as a manipulative, narcissistic person who is trying to take advantage of his audience, and by, you know, just by trying to take advantage of his wife by putting her in this
Mhm.
position to where, one, she didn't ask to be in the social media light, number one, and then two, trying to prop her up as a shield or a guise to hide from the criticism from him, putting her through this ordeal in the first place.
So I personally think it's the latter. And I'll say I didn't know who he was. I had seen like his videos, but never watched them on the timeline. And I'd seen, people repost them and all that stuff. But I didn't know that his shtick was this whole I'm a relationship guy. I lift up my back black queens and all that kind of stuff. I didn't realize that that is what his deal was. But again, this I think really for me broke on Monday, and I wasn't feeling well and I couldn't sleep, so I was deep down in the rabbit hole, looking and seeing what the deal was behind it. And what I saw is a narcissist who was a manipulator. Like I mentioned earlier, we all got our jokes off about, the way his wife was dressed and all those type of things. But after pondering on it and allowing it to sit more, and knowing that it's wrapped up in the guise of Christianity and the black church, it made me realize that I think, and this is just my opinion, he chose his wife for this specific reason.
Oh, wow.
I think he
Okay.
had her on this video looking like that for a specific reason, to say, look at this. This is the woman I married. And look at how she's dressed. You know, this is what led me to cheat because she
Oh,
doesn't, keep herself up.
oh
She
wow. You think
doesn't,
so?
yeah, I really think so because he's manipulated this situation from the very beginning, from the fact of not saying, who, selective amnesia, not mentioning that he was married. No one knew that he was married. He put off the facade that he was a single man, trying to help other men, love their women and treat their women right. And then the first time we see her, he didn't prepare her to be on camera. He didn't I mean, she doesn't have to be glammed up, but she could have been, allowed the opportunity to take her bonnet off and, take her hair
Or
down
control her own narrative.
or control her own narrative, not let this be the first thing. And in that video, how often did she speak? He was looking to her to validate all the points he was making about himself. And I've grown, I've changed. Isn't that right? Isn't that right? He was
Right.
just using her as a head nod to agree with what he was doing, which is what a lot of, unfortunately, black men in the church do. They go step it on their wife. They get outside children. They do all this stuff. But because you're the dutiful black Christian wife who stands by their man because you know it is for better or for worse,
Right.
and this just happens to be the worst, so you have to stick by me. And if you don't stick by me, then that means that you're not a real,
A
true
ride or
Christian
die,
woman.
which is what a lot of people were
Right.
saying, right?
Right. And I think, because they posted, some of um her tweets, I mean her Instagram posts or whatever, and it was really dark and I felt really bad for her because she talked about, her own insecurities, how she was raped before, how her father wasn't in her life, how she had a bad relationship with him, and just reading her words, they were just so heavy and so dark. And how she said that she looked at other women and compared herself to them. She couldn't do this sexually or that sexually. And that's why he stepped out because she wasn't able to fulfill his needs and all those types of things. It seemed to me that she has a lot of healing to do on herself. But what he's doing is just dragging her out to parade in front of everybody because he knows that she's going to, be that dutiful wife and agree with him and say he found God and he repented. That's why I took him back because he's now on the straight and narrow. But he's been cheating on her up through all of this.
Wow. Wow.
And the lady, the Tasha with the K who broke all this, she came out either today or yesterday and said, "Oh, so you're not going to talk about there's something else that you still haven't, acknowledged. I'm going to give you the opportunity to come out with it with yourself, and if you don't, then I will."
Wow.
So it's still more stuff. And my thing is, I grew up in the church. I'm a Southern girl, small town. You the black church has unfortunately in some instances really diminished and been the biggest purveyor of harm on black women, expecting black women to do all the labor, but you can't be in the pulpit and preach.
Right.
But we want you to do the teaching, but not so much that you overshadow the man. You can't be a pastor because the head of the church has to be a man. They
Right.
don't say that in the Bible.
Right.
That's something that man made up. And my thing is, I want for this woman to get the healing and therapy that she needs because aside if you take away and put all of the things that he did as a husband and all of that based on her own words and her own Instagram posts, she has a lot that she needs to deal with internally for herself before she can even start to probably even come to terms
Right.
with all the things that he's done to her in their marriage.
Right. And so what's so funny about that is that's one of his posts. That's one of his videos about men giving women the space that they need to heal. Right. And it looks like from the timeline that he mentioned, because according to him, not counting the stuff that you mentioned, that this has been an ongoing thing throughout their entire relationship. I'm just talking about the recent allegations and the time between him, them coming to an agreement that their relationship is over, her leaving, her deciding that he's changed, and them reconciling things, from what I understand, was only a year long. That whole thing was about a year from beginning to end.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know about you. I ain't never been in this position. I don't know if there's an official timeline for heartbreak and reconciliation, but it sounds like all the stuff they've been through, that ain't enough time. And if he were to take his own advice, which is another problem, because the problem, a lot of his advice, unbiased, is valid, right? A lot of the information that he,
Taking alone what he was saying, if it was somebody else saying it, someone who
if
went to school
uh
or
huh,
who was at their profession,
certification,
it
yeah,
made sense.
right.
I
So,
would assume.
but now the fact that he has been propped up or propped him own self up as
Hmm.
this expert and can't even follow his own advice, I don't know about you, but it invalidates everything. A lot of people say, oh, don't shoot the messenger. No. If somebody came to me, if a brother came to me and was like, yo, I know you in your 30s, your late 30s or early 40s, that's when most men start to lose their hair. I got this hot product that you need to take. And his hairline is back here. I'm not going to take his advice. I don't care what it is. I'm not going to take health advice. Yo, man, you need to be exercising. You need to get early sleep, man. And you need at least 30 minutes a day. And you on drugs and you a crackhead. As valid as your advice is, I'm not going to take that advice. So,
And he's a proven liar.
as a relationship expert who has built their whole brand around telling women what they should and should not expect from a man in order to find your happiness, which is another problem. The whole push of women, in order to find happiness, you need to
Have to
find a
find a man.
man. That's a whole nother issue, right?
Wrong.
Right? But for him to build his whole brand on look out for trash dudes, and then
Ooh, a
come to
trash
find
dude.
out he's a trash dude, that invalidates everything you just said. I don't care what validity, what common sense, what good points you had. I shoot the messenger. If you can't
Hmm.
live by your own standards, then I'm not going to listen to anything you suggest to me in my life and my standards, right? So I think
Ever.
that's the whole, unfortunately, it unravels all the good he did because, again, you can't take your own advice and you can't expect other people to keep their house clean when you can't keep your own. So,
Right. And one of the things is before we wrap up is I don't know if we talked about it on the show, but the minister John Gray,
yes, of
and when
course.
he was going through all his things, apparently this guy went on this huge rant about him and his wife and the cheating allegations and all that stuff. So here comes John Gray back saying, well, brother, and he did this long caption about, the way that he treated him when he was going
Through
through
his
his
thing,
own cheating scandal issues or whatever.
which had
And
this,
so the
which he
thing
had to, let me interrupt you. He had the same excuses.
is,
Well, I kind of did some things, but I didn't do the sex part, but I did
mhm,
all the stuff around it. So I ain't all that bad. So go
right,
ahead.
allegedly.
Right.
But again, are we supposed to take your word on what you did and didn't do when
Right.
you have proven to be a liar?
Uh-huh.
But all that to say is you out here, in the infamous words of Martin, living foul. I mean, straight up foul. And then you want to try and flip the script. And that's not how it works.
Right.
And again, I just really hope that his wife takes care of herself and gets the help that she needs. And also, I hope that he gets the help that he needs, because narcissism is a mental disorder.
Right.
And I think if anything, that third video showed straight up,
That was wild.
straight up. I mean, it's
Wild.
no way to mince or parse words.
Right.
That was straight up narcissism.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. So, for those who are interested into looking into this, I ain't gonna say it's worth all your day, but it like, again, it just puts that point to where, all information, you have to, question the source. All information ain't good information, regardless of who it comes from. And nobody has the right answers, But at the same time, again, like I said, it's just a shame that all of his information, while valid, now has been thrown into question because, putting this back to technology, bringing this back to social media, everybody now on social media has a platform, right? That's good because there are some people with information, with influence that they could share with information, with education, whatever the case may be, who didn't have a platform before, now has access to now has the ability to create this platform for themselves when otherwise they couldn't do it. The bad problem is everybody has a platform to then create a persona that they then themselves either get burnt out, either can't keep up, or in Derek Jackson's case, not living up to the social media persona that they portray. And that can be dangerous. Of a lot of
Yeah.
people out here doing whatever's trendy on social media, doing whatever's popular, and can't keep it up because eventually something's going to happen. And if you're not being your authentic self on social media, something like this
It's
will
going to come out.
destroy your entire brand if you're not being authentic, right? So I think ultimately that's the takeaway. Be who you are all the time. If you
Yeah.
go out here and try to pretend like you're one way to your friends, another way to your family, a whole nother way on
It's
social
not
media,
sustainable.
it's not sustainable. Exactly. And eventually the house of cards will come
We're tumbling
crashing
down.
down, which if it was me, right? And I'm going to end on this. I keep talking, but if it was me, right? And I built a platform on relationship advice targeting women, and I am a handsome, athletic, built guy, and I know my appeal, personal appeal, is what is attracting a lot of these women. But I know in the back of my head that I am not living the brand that I'm portraying. I would have been pivoted to, all right, well, let me figure out how I can hawk these smoothie shakes and these tummy teas and these virtual workout to where relationships is not my only source of income. So when
But
something like
that's where
this,
it comes into play that he has some sort of mental disorder to keep all of this in play and
right,
to think that he could get away with it still. And the thing that I think the biggest thing we're probably missing from all of this is that there are real people on the other side of these screens who have been taking his word
right,
as gospel
right,
and living their life and trying to find a person to do all these things he's talking about. What mentally happens to these Black women who are so invested in this? Because you're always told if you're a woman, you got to have a man. If you don't
right,
have a man, something wrong with you.
right.
That type of thing. What
Or
does it
who
do to the
better
mentality of these women?
Right. Or who better to tell you about men's behavior than other men? I think that's
Mhm.
another thing, another angle that he was coming at is who better to give you the game than another man, right?
'Cause I know.
Right. Yeah.
You do know, bro.
You know. You know.
Right.
All right, all
Yeah.
right. Enough of that, dude. Let's go ahead and close this out and move on to the hookup where we I give out some tips, and this tip for this week, if you need to catch somebody in a lie, you
Like his
can
wife should.
right. You can use your iPhone to actually record calls. Now, there's no traditional way. There's no built-in feature in the call app to actually record calls. But if you are on a phone call and you want to record that phone call, you can, just as simple, open up the voice memos app and start a new recording, and it will record the phone call and the conversation for both parties. Now, of course, the crux to this is, in order for it to be legal, in order for it not to get thrown out, and if you have to bring it in court and to avoid getting sued, you have to have permission, not everywhere, but in certain states, you have to have permission from both parties to actually record a conversation. But if you do figure out how to do that, or just need to keep it for notes purposes, to go back and listen to it to get notes, and you do have that permission, you can very easily use your iPhone, start the call, switch over to the voice memos, start a voice memo, and it will actually record your phone call. So that's my little tip for this week. If you're on a phone call, you need to make sure you record for prosperity, is it posterity? Posterity. Or, like I said, in Derek Jackson's case, you need to document some things.
Some records.
You can do that with your iPhone. So if you don't have anything else,
Nope.
Nica, I think that is it for the week. We definitely thank you all for listening to the show. In order to please, share the love, share it with a person. You can download, rate, and review the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. You can engage with us. We're on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at snobOS Cast. You can watch us on YouTube. In addition to being a podcast, we upload our shows every week to YouTube. You can find us at snobOS Cast. Be sure to do all the YouTube things, like, subscribe, get notified so you are notified when videos go up every week. You can leave comments and suggestions. You can do so on our website. We're at snoboscast.com, or you can shoot us an email at snoboscast@gmail.com. Finally, you can support the show monetarily. You can support us via Patreon for as little as $5 a month. You get access to pre-show, our live show taping. You get access to the show early, and you get access to our snobOS Cast community. You can do so by going to patreon.com/snobOS Cast. We definitely want to thank our new snobist. We have a new one, Sam Russell. He is the gentleman who is the new Patreon, who we read his comments earlier in the show. So we definitely want to thank you to our new member.
Thank you, Sam.
Right, thank you. And if you don't want to become a monthly subscriber via Patreon, you can give us a love offering via PayPal. We're at paypal.me/snobOS. And other than that, I think that is it this week. So until next week rather, we are out. Peace.
Bye.